Oh, the pain I suffered before I died in the sanitarium. Who was really responsible for what happened to me? And you, Dr. Weiss, all the red blood flooding out of your white clothes. Who was really responsible for what happened to you? Doc, obviously lots of things that night didn't go well. Keep in mind, I was dealing with tons of stress. I had 42 bills I wanted to pass through a special session before the end of the week. That damn Lake Charles representative Jack Williamson had the nuggets to ask me a question about one of those bills. Right now, I can't remember which bill it was. Early Sunday morning, the New Orleans chapter of the Young Men's Business Club was inside the Capitol on a sightseeing tour, and they wanted to know if I would pose with them for a picture. I told my favorite reporter, "Hey, I have serious business to take care of, all right?" There was that Gilry, too, from St. Landry Parish, who wanted me to make him a judge. You know, for some reason, I believe this veteran fellow doesn't like me. Hey, after I got shot, I understand people out there are praying for me to die. Because I was hard and I did wrong through my life. But I did right too, far more than I did wrong. And I can do more right now. Doc, what better way is there for me to redeem my reputation than here and now defend you from assassination charges? Don't look at me funny. Remember, I practice law. I argued one case before the U.S. Supreme Court, and I won the case. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen, let us begin. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, essentially, we are talking about the intertwined fortunes of three people. Benjamin H. Pavy, the judge of the Louisiana 13th Judicial District. Dr. Carl Austin Weiss, the judge's son-in-law. And Senator Huey P. Long, that's me. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, before we delve into several serious issues, allow me to say, whatever grievance or grievances, grudge or grudges, Judge Benjamin H. Pavy or Dr. Carl Weiss may have nurtured against Senator Huey P. Long, they could have been settled through legal, nonviolent means, especially when you consider the judge's son, Alfred V. Pavy, was an attorney, and one of the judge's brothers, Dr. Felix Octave Pavy, was a member of the State House of Representatives for St. Landry Parish. And, lest I forget, Robert E. Lee Garland, the 13th Judicial District Attorney, his daughter Alice was married to Paul Pavy, a school teacher, also one of Judge Benjamin H. Pavy's brothers. An inquest was held during the week after Dr. Weiss and I were killed. I believe each witness recalled what they saw, what they thought they saw, or what they hoped they had seen. Murphy Roden, one of Senator Long's guards. Murphy Roden and his watch. The watch. According to the East Baton Rouge Parish District Attorney, Dr. Weiss shot the watch from Murphy's hand. But if you look at the photograph, the watch appears to be largely intact. Yes, one strap is broken. One dent appears. So does a dark mark on the underside of the watch. But I submit those damages could have been inflicted on the watch elsewhere, anywhere. Perhaps the district attorney's explanation for the damaged watch is a little exaggerated, a little melodramatic. Indeed, Dr. Weiss's alleged role in the assassination of Senator Long, that's me, is all exaggerated, all a little melodramatic. The watch. It is evidence, according to the East Baton Rouge Parish District Attorney. During the guard's inquest testimony, delivered 1 week after the shooting of Senator Long, the guard didn't report any mishap related to his watch. After Dr. Weiss allegedly shot Senator Long, that's me. If Dr. Weiss had fired a bullet at the guard would have lost more than his watch. He would have lost his hand and wrist too. And you know, the guard wore no bandage or otherwise showed signs of a recent injury during his inquest testimony. And I would like to point out, when the guard, Murphy Roden, testified during the inquest, he recalled gun smoke and powder burned his hands and face to such an extent he couldn't see to tell just what was going on during most of the fray, which he recollected occurred over no more than 6 seconds. And the district attorney talks about how Dr. Weiss carried a .32 caliber gun into the Capitol, and he shot me there. But when I view the disturbing crime scene photograph, I don't see a gun on the floor near the body of Dr. Weiss. No gun appears in either one of the doctor's hands. And Mr. District Attorney, you mentioned you don't care why Dr. Weiss allegedly shot me. Well, I must say, the why of the matter matters, because the why defines motive or motives. What comes first, the egg or the chicken? Of course, the egg comes first. What comes first, the motive or the act? Motive comes first. Let's talk about motive or motives. 6 motives exist as to why Dr. Weiss allegedly shot Senator Long. Dr. Weiss did not know of any insult Senator Long planned to pronounce or publish which could harm his wife and son. All the madness I'm talking about occurs because St. Landry Parish is moving from the 13th district into another district with 3 other parishes. It's a transfer that is probably overdue because of population shifts recorded by the 1930 census. It's 5 years late. Hell, when Judge Pavy first took office in 1911, St. Landry Parish was in the 16th district. Near that time, the decision was made to divide St. Landry Parish to make room for a new Evangeline Parish, so the State Tourist Board could capitalize on the popular Longfellow poem. Don't blame me for that. I was only 17. In 1890, St. Landry Parish was in the 11th district. In 1860, St. Landry Parish was in the 8th district, and so forth. If anybody has a problem with that history, see the U.S. Census Bureau. It's no sin to feel anger or disappointment over the loss of employment for yourself, for your family, for your neighbors. There are numerous nonviolent methods to challenge such a predicament. such as a lawsuit for wrongful dismissal. Surely, the Pavy family had recourse to such action. I have already mentioned Judge Pavy's son Alfred was an attorney, and his brother Felix was a member of the state legislature. At this time, I should add, Judge Pavy's brother Paul, one of the aggrieved school teachers, was married to a woman named Alice, the daughter of Alice Garland, the district attorney for the 13th Judicial District in Louisiana. Just for good measure, I will say two other aggrieved school teachers, Harry Garland and Helen Garland. Their father was Alice Garland, the 13th Judicial District Attorney. So at what point does it make sense for Dr. Weiss to take up arms against a sea of troubles and shoot Senator Long? One insurance adjuster's report seems to infer Dr. Weiss may have resented blueprints to redevelop downtown Baton Rouge, land use plans that may have called for the city to acquire properties owned by Dr. Weiss's father, plans encouraged by Senator Long. Now, ladies and gentlemen, land use decisions often stir very complicated issues related to fair value, public domain, etc. Plans which may turn into court cases, plans which may take years to settle. Indeed, my untimely death by assassination or otherwise would have little effect on such plans. The same intriguing adjuster's report stipulates trigger-happy guards were responsible for Senator Long's untimely death. They fired blindly and wildly 40 or 50 shots, and one of those shots struck Senator Long. Well, that assessment isn't quite accurate. The same report indicates, and I quote, "There is considerable doubt that Dr. Weiss ever fired a gun." I agree with that remark by the insurance adjuster. Some people say Dr. Weiss was an idealist. He hated all things evil, including my often debatable agenda and my bold attempts to make Louisiana a better place. Some people recall Dr. Weiss said, "I am going to kill Huey Long." Those people are full of anecdotal nonsense, hilarious hearsay, and sanctimonious humbug. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Weiss did not compose any note or record an entry into his diary, or create a poem or anything else like that, to explain why he had to commit himself to such a drastic action, that is, to kill Senator Long. Many dreamers and idealists and utopians want to leave something literate behind for posterity. But Dr. Weiss wasn't planning to kick the bucket soon. Otherwise, at least, he might have written a will for his wife and child. My opponents called me every name in the book. I, Senator Long, was a dictator, a thief, a liar, and yet I was elected repeatedly to public office in Louisiana. At any point during my service, people were free to leave Louisiana if they chose to do so. People from every walk of life, including Dr. Weiss. And yet, up until the hour of his death, Dr. Weiss lived a healthy, normal life within the realm of Louisiana. What real hardship did the man suffer at my hands to the point where he just had no choice but to kill me? What real physical evidence exists to support the idea that Dr. Weiss shot me to avenge his family, his neighbors, or himself? Precious little physical evidence exists in my view, and as we proceed, you will share my view. During the next few minutes, one witness will give some ideas to the character of Dr. Weiss and how much his family suffered from his death. Dr. Weiss will appear to render his account of key events which occurred before the assassination of Senator Long. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is it reasonable for you to doubt the guilt of Dr. Carl Weiss and his alleged assassination of Senator Long? Yes. Hell yes. Thank you. I conclude my opening statement. I call my first witness, Miss Ida Pavy, sister-in-law of Dr. Weiss. Miss Ida, please describe Dr. Weiss, his treatment of you, his personality, his demeanor.
During the time Dr. Weiss courts his future wife, she happens to be Vonnie, my older sister, I am 12 years old, living with my parents in St. Landry Parish. When the doctor visits our home, usually he gives me one Whitman's box of chocolates. Well, that makes me believe he can hang the moon.
Describe your family's reaction to the tragedy involving Dr. Weiss and Senator Long.
Bonnie receives letters that badly frighten her after Dr. Weiss dies. She flees to France with her child. My papa, Judge Benjamin, dies 8 years later. Me, I grow up. Every now and then, I still enjoy the occasional Whitman's box of chocolates. When people ask me how Dr. Weiss and Senator Long got killed, I say, we should leave it in the hands of the good Lord because none of us knows exactly what happened.
Thank you, Miss Sida. Mr. District Attorney, your witness. My next witness is Dr. Carl Weiss. Doctor, please give us a thumbnail sketch of yourself, your activities, your relationships in Baton Rouge shortly before your untimely death.
Vonnie and I got married in 1933, 2 years before my premature death. We cherished one another each day, especially after our only baby was born, 3 months before my premature death. We lived in a humble house near the east side of Baton Rouge on Lakeland Drive, 2 blocks from the Louisiana state capitol. My parents lived in Baton Rouge on 5th Street. My father was a past president of the Louisiana Medical Association. I had followed him into the medical profession. We practiced out of the same office. We took turns driving his 1929 Buick Roadster.
Dr. Weiss, people are probably very curious about your mission in life. Tell people all about the Hippocratic Oath.
I was a doctor. I was a healer. Always. No matter what. My first instinct was to cure, not kill. Before I became a doctor, I swore to the Hippocratic Oath. It obligated me to preserve the purity of my practice from any conflict of interest. It obligated me to enter every house only for the good of my patients and keep myself from all intentional wrongdoing. I pledged to prescribe a regimen for the good of my patients according to the best of my ability and my judgment, and do no harm to anyone.
May it please the court, I hereby offer Exhibit A, one photograph of the DeSoto Hotel in New Orleans. Dr. Weiss, describe what experience you may have had with the so-called DeSoto Conference at the DeSoto Hotel in New Orleans, July 21st and July 22nd, 1935.
2 months before he was shot, many of Senator Long's political opponents gathered for a 2-day conference in New Orleans at the DeSoto Hotel. Allegedly, some of the conferees plotted to assassinate the senator. I don't know. I wasn't there. During the conference, I was miles away, treating patients for ailments, including Senator Long's niece, Charlotte Davis.
Doc, I appreciate your comments, and I thank you for referring to me in the third person. It makes your testimony sound objective and very smart. Please describe, briefly, what happened to you around 9:20 p.m., September the 8th, 1935, in Baton Rouge at the Capitol building.
Senator Long's guards killed me, but I didn't shoot him.
What actions, decisions, or policies created by Senator Long may have affected your life through September the 8th, 1935?
I knew he had ordered the dismissal of several public school teachers in St. Landry Parish, including my wife's sister, Marie, and her uncle Paul. Yes, I was concerned about Judge Benjamin, my father-in-law.
Dr. Weiss was referring to the House Bill 1 proposed legislation of the special session, which potentially could unseat Judge Benjamin H. Pavy, the doctor's father-in-law, from the 13th State Judicial District. Thank you, sir, for your candid admission. Very well. You were aware of dramatic changes related to certain important issues. All well and good. What issue or issues other than the school teacher's dismissal or the bubbling controversy over the status of Judge Benjamin Pavy may have compelled you to carry a gun into the Capitol, including any sort of peripheral concern.
Senator, I cannot recall any more issues than what I have just mentioned. Honestly, I can remember no other concerns.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sunday morning, September the 8th, 1935, went very well for Dr. Weiss. All day he drove his father's Buick. He didn't drive his own car just yet. He was saving money for that. He recently bought new furniture, and he installed new electrical wiring in his home. As I was saying, that Sunday morning, Dr. Weiss attended St. Joseph Church with his wife. While Dr. Weiss attended church with his wife, his parents watched their baby in their home on 5th Street. After church, Dr. Weiss and his wife stopped at a florist shop. There, the doctor sent flowers to a couple of his patients in hospital. In turn, the florist gave Dr. and Mrs. Weiss a complimentary bouquet as a late present to honor the birth of their child. Then, the couple drove to Dr. Weiss's parents' home for lunch, and Dr. Weiss gave the complimentary flowers to his mother. After lunch, Dr. Weiss drove his wife, his baby, and parents to the Amite River. Yes, Mr. East Baton Rouge Parish District Attorney, I do have a question for Dr. Weiss. Dr. Weiss, I believe by now the court and the jury must notice how articulate you are and how honest and impressive your memory is. What did you do September the 8th, 1935, after you arrived at the Amite River?
Bonnie and I swam together in the river while my parents amused our child. After we emerged from the water, we relaxed. I nudged my glasses onto my head so I could read the Saturday afternoon edition of the Baton Rouge State Times. The newspaper reported during the weekend in the Capitol, the State House of Representatives would conduct a special session. One small paragraph mentioned Judge Benjamin, Vonnie's father. I shouted to my wife about it. "Vonnie, your father is in the newspaper." And she read the paper.
Fine, just fine. My father should retire.
Around sunset, we left the river. I told my father I wanted to visit my patients that evening. "Drive your mother and me home. You keep the Buick and I'll see you later," my father said. Appropriately, I drove my parents to their home on 5th Street. Then I drove the Buick with Vonnie and our baby to our place on Lakeland Drive. We ate sandwiches for supper. I fed Pete, our German Shepherd. I called Dr. McGee to remind him we were scheduled for a tonsillectomy at Baton Rouge General Hospital the following morning. Then I answered a telephone call.
Dr. Weiss, at that time, tell the court who called you. How would you describe the senator's attitude as he spoke with you over the phone? A few minutes after 8 o'clock at night, I called Dr. Weiss at his home. May it please the court, I present Exhibit B, several graphics to depict the contents of my phone call to Dr. Weiss. What did you do after your phone conversation with Senator Long finished?
Around 9 o'clock, I drove to the Capitol. I parked the Buick out front. Before I left the vehicle, I took care to conceal my medical bag in the car and lock all of its doors. I did not hide any sort of weapon on my person. When I approached the Capitol front entrance, I informed the guard of my appointment with Senator Long. As he admitted me into the building, the guard directed me to the governor's office. I stepped through the narrow hall to the office. Mrs. Guffey eyeballed me warily immediately after I entered the office.
Sir, this is a restricted area.
I'm Dr. Weiss. I have an appointment to see Senator Long.
Your name doesn't appear on the senator's appointment calendar.
Senator Long told me to meet him here.
Sir, you can wait outside the door if you'd like, but you cannot stay in this room.
Where is Senator Long?
Somewhere in this building.
I walked back into the narrow hall. Then I saw Senator Long hurry into the narrow hall, followed by several stone-faced men. Apparently, he didn't recognize me as he marched into the governor's office. The men stopped and stood outside the office door. I tried to follow Senator Long into the office, but one man blocked me. He said, "What's your business here?" I said, "I have an appointment with Senator Long." He said, "The hell you do." He pushed me. One moment later, Senator Long walked out of the governor's office. I tried to approach him again. Then I felt one soft hand rub and swan smoothly between my right axilla and my right elbow. I heard one loud bang. I didn't see who fired the shot, but I saw the gun drop to the floor. Quickly, the men turned their heads toward me. They drew weapons out of their holsters. They fired at me. My body flapped as I tried in vain to stop a spray of bullets. Soon, I collapsed. I was 29. I died without a will. Fortunately, I had stipulated Vonnie as the beneficiary on my standard insurance policy.
Mr. East Baton Rouge Parish District Attorney, your witness. Dr. Weiss, please elaborate on your answer to the district attorney as to whether you felt compelled to stop Senator Long from announcing or publishing derogatory remarks about your family. May it please the court. May it please the jury. May it please the East Baton Rouge Parish District Attorney. I think what follows next may be highly irregular, and I ask for a sidebar. Thank you, Your Honor. Having been duly sworn by the judge during sidebar, I appear now as a witness. I'm aware of my constitutional rights, including the Fifth Amendment. Consider now my own witness to the tragedy of Dr. Weiss. The trouble starts with Isom J. Gilry. He represents St. Landry Parish in the State House of Representatives. He wants to become judge of the 13th District. Why the hell not? Judge Benjamin Pavy already has the job, but he and I don't get along. Gilry was a good man, a smart man. He could process detail. But one day, in the House chamber, Gilry was debating an issue. He fumbled on a point, and I told him to sit down. Probably I embarrassed Gilry. Maybe he had a slight speech impediment, or he felt self-conscious regarding his Cajun accent. In due course, Gilry decided he wanted another job, preferably one where he didn't have to speak in public too much. And so I tell Gilry, I'll make the world right for you, buddy. Some people from Evangeline Parish squawk. Kingfish, why are you helping Gilry so much? The 13th District needs somebody else. I tell them, yeah, you're right. Some people think Gilry is clever, but I'm not one of those people. So, I write the bill to transfer St. Landry Parish out of the 13th District, away from Evangeline Parish, and into the 15th District, with Acadia, Lafayette, and Vermilion parishes, where everybody there loves me. The transfer would give Gilry a big advantage over Judge Pavy during election time. Damn. House Bill 1 probably should have been written soon after the enumerations of the 1930 census were published. By no means was House Bill 1 my biggest priority during the special session of the Louisiana legislature in September 1935. My biggest concern was figuring out how to provide back pay for a lot of angry New Orleans civil servants and how to enforce the 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution against the Roosevelt administration. I was a very ambitious politician, I was thinking about dealing with Churchill and de Gaulle and de Valera and Franco and Hitler and Mussolini and Stalin. How much blood, tears, sweat, and time did I have to pour water on territorial jealousies within the 13th Judicial District of Louisiana, or to gut Judge Pavy from his judiciary perch? Around 8 p.m., September the 8th, 1935. I'm trying to relax somewhere in the state capitol building. I'm telling my agent some old stories about growing up in Wynn Parish. Then somebody from St. Landry Parish tells me he knows. One ancestor of Judge Pavy's wife used to consort with dark-skinned ladies in Storyville. In Kingfish, if you spread circulars with that information to folks in Acadia, Vermilion, and Lafayette Parish, it'll make damn sure Judge Pavy loses his next election. Well, that sort of thing sounded too much like the Ku Klux Klan. And if you read the book about me by Professor Williams, you'll discover I really didn't favor the Klan. I look at this unnamed person and I say, hey, is there a sign floating over my head that reads, dumbass? I'm fighting Standard Oil, FDR, New Dealers, Square Dealers, Mayor Walmsley. I want to build more bridges, more roads. I want to establish pensions for people at age 60. I want to share the wealth. What kind of government would I be able to administer if I allow myself to become distracted by such trivial matters in St. Landry Parish? As a matter of fact, I was already fairly deep in hot water over a libel suit filed against me in Washington by one former Army general. The suit was the result of my zealous defense of John H. Overton, my fellow Louisiana senator, who was getting investigated for election fraud. And you may remember several years before I was elected governor of Louisiana, I served as chair of the Louisiana Public Service Commission, and I lost a libel suit to Governor Parker over a mere technicality. The thing is, the Pavy family came from France, north of Paris, and they arrived in Louisiana pretty much after the Civil War, the war between the states, whatever you want to call it. And Gilry's people came from the Canada Maritimes and northern Maine during the middle of the 18th century. It was called the Great Expulsion. And that is the biggest difference between the two camps, which is what my circulars would have expressed to voters in the 15th District. Vote for Gilry. He's your man. He's Huey's man, too. Obviously, people want to know, why did Dr. Weiss enter the Capitol that night? If not to kill me, then for what other purpose? It's simple. I invited him to enter the Capitol for a conversation regarding his father-in-law. Me, I want to run for president. I figure some fence mending here and there would do no harm. So, I plan to invite Dr. Weiss into the governor's office and make what I believe is a very generous offer. My plan was to address Dr. Weiss in a very friendly, avuncular fashion. Hey, Doc, if you persuade Judge Benjamin H. Pavy, your father-in-law, to resign from the bench weeks before the next election for his judicial district in 1936, I can make you, the judge's son-in-law, a director or an executive for an existing or new hospital, and that would make you the youngest such official in all of Louisiana. And I could plan a reversal for the fired school administrators and teachers and see them return to their work. That would make life better for Judge Benjamin, Gilry, you, and me too. I supposed my offer would be accepted. And I figured it is the least I can do to reward, to give thanks to a young man, a talented physician, who treated my niece with her medical needs so professionally. I copied Dr. Weiss's telephone number from an advertisement in the Baton Rouge State Times. It was part of a display for the Raymond building and a listing of all of its tenants. Seymour, my chief of staff, thought the Raymond building was a hornet's nest for me, especially after the DeSoto conference. Then, I admit, I assigned agents to spy on every occupant of the Raymond building. At first, those agents paid a lot of attention to Dr. Carl Adam Weiss, presumably one of many anti-longs who had attended the DeSoto conference. Later, I discover Dr. Carl Adam Weiss is the father of Dr. Weiss, the young doctor who treated my niece, Charlotte, so nicely. Furthermore, my agents found nothing amiss with the young man. One agent followed Dr. Weiss Sunday morning, September the 8th, 1935, until the doctor and his wife returned home from the Amite River. Another agent was assigned to enter the governor's office around 9:30 p.m. that evening and attend my meeting with Dr. Weiss. Before the meeting began, the agent would search Dr. Weiss for weapons, which begs an interesting question, I suppose. Did Dr. Weiss own a firearm? Of course, he did. Damn near everybody does in Louisiana, at one time or another. Dr. Weiss purchased a relatively small weapon, a .32 caliber gun, while he was studying medicine in Vienna, because one of his professors told him it was a solid defense against dope fiends, and Dr. Weiss kept the gun stowed away in his medical kit. It would have been impractical and uncomfortable for Dr. Weiss, a tall man, to carry a small weapon, in this case a .32 caliber gun, in a leg or shoulder holster, which could have been discovered easily by a guard during a pat-down search. Also consider, ladies and gentlemen, During the night of September 8th, 1935 in the Capitol, if Dr. Weiss had attempted to lug any type of gun or pistol into the building, it would have been impossible for him to hide the weapon. Any guard would have spotted the imprint of the weapon through his clothes, especially since he was wearing white clothes, typical for a doctor. The type of clothes that could reveal a very visible stain from oil used to clean a gun or pistol. As such, Dr. Weiss would have been apprehended long before he got near Senator Long. Furthermore, Dr. Weiss did not carry his medical kit into the Capitol that night. So I believe Dr. Weiss carried no weapon into the Capitol the night of September the 8th, 1935. He bore no intent to kill me. Again, allow me to stress, there wasn't much fear of Dr. Weiss carrying a weapon during his unscheduled meeting with me. And you know, the whole thing begins to sound like a comical description of people chasing chickens across the Acadiana prairie during Mardi Gras. Dr. Weiss arrived for our meeting too early. Mrs. Guffey booted him out of the governor's office. He wandered around until he was distracted momentarily by teenage girls hunting for my autograph. The agent assigned to our meeting just missed meeting Dr. Weiss in the governor's office, where he would have told Mrs. Guffey to give Dr. Weiss a seat to rest his weary bones after all the swimming he did in the Amite River earlier that day. On top of all of it, I left the House chamber sooner than I thought I would, because I was anxious to talk with my favorite reporter about a hurricane in Florida, drowning young men from the Civilian Conservation Corps, a story which could embarrass Roosevelt. Who shot me? What gun was used to shoot me? The Scottish poet Robert Burns wrote, "The best laid plans of mice and men often go awry." Was every single bag checked that night in the Capitol? No. Doc, sometimes you don't see the forest because of the trees. Other times, you don't see the trees because of the forest. After I entered the governor's office, I didn't see you. So, I stepped into the hall, where I had 7 guards gathered to protect me. Some of them on their own were very clever. Altogether, they weren't too bright. One small, slender woman sneaked through several guards until she stood behind Dr. Weiss on his right side. She pulled her small gun out of her small purse. She aimed her gun at me through the space between Dr. Weiss's right armpit and elbow. Judge Fournay pushed the woman to her left side. She still fired. The bullet struck my belly on my right side. The guard, Murphy Roden, pushed the woman to her right side. She fired again. The bullet whizzed over my left shoulder. It did no harm to anybody. Murphy Roden grappled with the woman who shot Senator Long. The woman who shot Senator Long slipped away from Roden after she dropped her .32 caliber gun to the floor, which Roden retrieved. Another guard, Elliot Coleman, pounced on a young man wearing white clothes. Coleman punched the man under his jaw, sending him to the floor, rendering him almost unconscious. The other guards assisted Coleman by opening fire on the young man wearing white clothes. The man in white clothes was later identified as Dr. Carl Weiss. As Roden explained during the inquest, the fiasco lasted 6 seconds. Me, I stagger to the west side of the hall. I almost fall downstairs to the basement, where Jimmy O'Connor sees me. He rushes me to the hospital, where surgeons try to save me. While I was flat on the operating table, somebody tells me, "Senator, Dr. Weiss shot you." I ask, why would he want to shoot me? I tried to do him a big favor. Then, before I fade away, I remember. One day my favorite reporter tells me, "Kingfish, one of your guards has a dangerous sister." Can you imagine my sense of irony at that moment? I thought I did right by women. Hattie Caraway of Arkansas was the first woman elected to the U.S. Senate in her own right, largely because I went to Arkansas and I campaigned for her. Lucille May Grace was my state land registrar. Alice Lee Grosjean was my state supervisor of public accounts. I felt like Zeus, getting attacked all at once by Antigone, Hera, and Medusa. Minutes after Dr. Weiss died, my agent stepped out of the governor's office and identified the dead man in the narrow hall wearing white clothes as Dr. Weiss. Who else could it have been? Obviously, our meeting with Dr. Weiss had been canceled. And my agent directed the guards to the doctor's Buick, where they found the doctor's medical kit and his .32 caliber gun. Also, my agent told my favorite reporter all about my conversation in the Capitol with the man from St. Landry Parish regarding Judge Pavy and circulars and ancestry and dark-skinned ladies. Then my favorite reporter passed the story to the damn lying newspapers. The damn lying newspapers were very happy to distort the story for the readers, favoring scandal over truth. And it didn't hurt my people if anyone out there craving the truth heard only lies. For instance, Since Weiss is a German name, which means white in English, the damn line newspaper supposed Dr. Weiss had a black bomb in his brain. It blew up, and suddenly he was a lunatic who just had to shoot me. The family of Dr. Weiss did very little about it, because they didn't want any more publicity. They wanted to be left alone. 1 minute after I died, my staff had several problems to solve. Primarily, how to conceal the identity of my guard's errant sister, the one who shot me like a Greek goddess, full of vengeance, for me, a mere mortal. Particularly since one of the guards rather belatedly admitted to his associates he might have seen his crazy sister appear in the narrow hall, out of the corner of his eye, too late, far too late, to stop her from shooting me. And my staff had to assess how to divert official attention away from possible manslaughter charges against the guards. The fact of the proposed meeting between Huey Long and Dr. Weiss had to be kept under wraps too, because the more Dr. Weiss appeared to be a wild fly in the hay, the better it would look for my successors in the political picnic. If you don't understand what I'm trying to say, don't try to do it. Just remember, Dr. Weiss did not shoot me. Mr. East Baton Rouge Parish District Attorney, I am ready for your cross-examination. Most likely, Antigone, Hera, or Medusa would have tried to hide behind another person near me in the narrow hall. She would have fired her gun behind that other person. She would have tried to kill me. The Greek goddess is not a product of my imagination. Probably her brother or one of his cohorts dropped the gun she fired, the gun she used to shoot me, into the Amite River. Or, for all I know, the guard who is her brother returned the gun to his sister, or another guard returned it to her, and she has already used or will use the gun for another nefarious purpose. House Bill 1 was a legitimate political transaction, an action inspired by one of the basic tenets of democracy, that is to say, majority rules. I believe honest historians and people everywhere with common sense would affirm my view. The bill was constructed to move one judge from the 13th District into the 15th District. It follows the district attorney from the 13th District would move also into the 15th District, regardless as to what last names were involved. I have considered the question for a long time. The best answer I have now: when I was governor of Louisiana, from time to time, I authorized raids on illegal gambling joints. One of the joints provided their customers with fancy ladies. My troops searched the ladies too close, too much. The ladies didn't appreciate the attention. One of them owned a cold heart and a long memory. Since I was boss of the troops, she blamed me for her embarrassment. May it please the court. Ladies and gentlemen, my closing statement. How grotesque it is to blame Dr. Carl Austin Weiss for the assassination of one democratically elected senator. The same Dr. Weiss, who is part of a family that for many years has stood firmly for democracy and the rule of law. Dr. Weiss did not attend the conference in New Orleans at the DeSoto Hotel, which some of Senator Long's opponents called the assassination conference. He didn't appreciate his in-laws losing their teaching jobs, but not enough to kill a man about it. Dr. Weiss wore no creed on his sleeve other than Christianity and the Hippocratic Oath. As for House Bill 1, Dr. Weiss followed his wife Vonnie, who sounded relieved by the notion Judge Pavy, her father, could retire sooner rather than later. The night of September 8, 1935, Dr. Weiss knew Judge Pavy faced the end of his long career as a judge. Yet Dr. Weiss possessed confidence in Judge Pavy's character, his courage, and his ability to challenge any foe in the public arena through legal, nonviolent means. In fact, Dr. Weiss spent most of his final hours on Earth with his family. He went to church with his wife. He gave flowers to his mother. He sent flowers to patients. He swam in the Amite River. He fed his dog. He kissed his wife before he left his home to make house calls and visit Baton Rouge General Hospital. Did he have murder on his mind at any point during Sunday, September the 8th, 1935? I don't see how. No. Dr. Weiss was a very educated man. He graduated from high school months earlier than the average student. He excelled at university. He became a medical doctor at a remarkably young age. He had a beautiful wife, a 3-month-old child. He was on the way to becoming a wealthy man. Why would he toss everything aside? For what? To shoot me? Just another poor boy from Wynn Parish? Ladies and gentlemen, did Dr. Weiss shoot me? The answer to my question is no. Without reservation, without qualification. No matter what you look at, no matter how you look at it, Dr. Weiss died. So did Senator Long. Dr. Weiss died of multiple bullet wounds triggered by Senator Long's guards. Senator Long, one bullet killed him. The one bullet which killed Senator Long came out of a small gun fired by one insane Medusa, or else one insane Hera, determined to kill Zeus. The small gun she fired at Senator Long was lost deliberately. Dr. Weiss's small gun, retrieved from his medical kit, was utilized as evidence to cover up for Medusa or Hera or whatever her name is. Basically, as the result of all the calamity, Senator Long bled to death when all is said and done. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you are about to enter deliberations. When you enter deliberations, I suggest you consider and adopt the following speech. I call upon the East Baton Rouge Parish District Attorney to find the actual person who fired the actual gun at Senator Long, not the gun somebody pilfered out of the doctor's medical kit 30 minutes after shots rang out in the Capitol. The medical kit hidden in the doctor's vehicle parked on Capitol grounds. Ladies and gentlemen, you must answer pivotal questions. Whose hands were placed on what gun that shot me around 9:30 p.m. September the 8th, 1935 in Baton Rouge at the Capitol? The hands of Dr. Weiss on his gun, or the hands of somebody else on another gun? I suggest firmly the latter. Ladies and gentlemen, now you have the opportunity to restore dignity to bereaved families. Robert Penn Warren, the Pulitzer Prize author, is quoted as saying, "The past always rebukes the present." Ladies and gentlemen, you have the wonderful opportunity to make the present rebuke the past. I rest my case.